大家早安，女士们、先生们，欢迎大家来参加本届 ICMC 在线会议2020年。我是 Harry 杨，我边上坐的是徐红喜教授，他是来自上海中医药大学中药学院的院长。我和徐教授是本节会议的主持人，也是主题演讲阶段的主持人。我们都是国际现代中药现代化联盟的创会主席，这是我们中药界的年会。就在2天之前，有2位我们的主题演讲嘉宾钟南山和张国岭教授，他们都已经贡献了中国的成功抗疫。那么他们也被授予共和国勋章，这是中国最高的一种荣誉，也是最高的人民英雄荣誉。他们是由习近平主席所授予的。我们非常的衷心的祝贺钟南山院士和张国岭院士，感谢他们的贡献。那么也就因为这新冠肺炎对我们的影响，我们正在适应着生活的新常态，保持社交距离，注意个人卫生。我们也把这些变成了生活的新的方式。而中国的传统医药 TMC 已经它的发展和商业化呢，是由我们本届委员会选择的一个本次的主席。我们非常的高兴能够邀请到接下来的2位主题演讲嘉宾，他们是李爱平教授和吴以岭教授。我现在就把时间交给徐教授，给我们介绍一下吕教授。我非常高兴能给大家介绍一下这2位教授，用中文。Later on, we will have 2 keynote speakers. The first one is Professor Aiping from Hong Kong BU. Let's welcome. Professor Liu is currently the chair professor at the Institute of Chinese Traditional Medicine. He is also the member of the TCM Development Committee of Hong Kong and also awarded the development grant of the state. He is also the committee member of the GCPCM, a research committee at the international level. For a long time, he has been studying the syndromes and symptoms. He enjoys a very high reputation in this field. He has published a lot of papers at the top-notch journals like Nature Medicine. So far, Professor Liu has published over 350 publications. Today, Mr. Liu will share with you the TCM sound practices in containment of the H1N1 influenza.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation from the committee. I was very honored and a bit nervous because infectious diseases is not my specialty. But I think I can share something with you. Back in 2009, we had a state special topic research on H1N1, and we received 100 million RMB for this project, and I was part of the leadership leading team for it. So I was the coordinator for this project. So of course I was the one in charge of drafting the report. So after the report, I haven't been talking about it because, again, that's not my specialty. So I would like to use this opportunity to share some of our experiences and background and results, and also the platform we have built based on our research. Okay. So back in 2009, because this was coincided with 60th anniversary of Republic of China and Shanghai Expo. So, but at the time we had an outbreak of H1N1 in China, but at the time we were unable to produce effective drugs for H1N1. So as part of the emergency response from the Ministry of Finance, we started this project. So our institute was in charge of leading this project. So the main goals of our project was to form a clinical treatment plan. And the second one was to foster a talent team and to form a clinical research model. And of course, we need a lot of fundamental research and a network. So it's clinical talent, a prevention network, and also a medical research capability building. So these are the 4 goals that we're looking at. So we're mainly talking about H1N1 flu in this topic, but we also looked into the hand-foot-mouth disease and JE, and we'll be looking at the patterns, the treatment plans, effective drugs, team building, and as well as supporting technologies. So I think there are a lot of things we can learn from the technical route of theoretical research process. So we did a lot of retrospective studies, and we looked through a lot of literature, and we had a lot of discussions with specialists, compare previous information and emerging information. And we discussed we did a lot of case studies and analyses, so that we can form a pattern of treatment and kind of gather a lot of characteristics from the literature study we did. So that's the technical route we took. So, for retrospective studies, we looked through over 300 periodical papers, and we did 5 specialist discussions, analyzed 168 clinical cases. So these are some of the names in TCM to refer to H1N1, and also the pathology, the syndrome differentiation and treatment protocols of H1N1. Because we had the project, and so we had a lot of specialists coming together so we can actually come to agreement, a consensus on a lot of things. Because there are a lot of characteristics and different regions in China, so sometimes people use different terms for the same thing. The same thing happened with hand-foot-mouth disease and JE. So within the project, we really focused on H1N1. So we did a lot of retrospective studies on the clinical cases. In 2009, we had to do mandatory nucleic acid testing, and every test had been approved. It's not like today almost everyone can get it if you want it. So in our studies, we discovered that. So we had a lot of cases that with body temperature over 38, and so there are a lot of TCM, Chinese medicine, that's used in the treatment, and we realized that those on TCM treatment actually had a shorter pyrus shredding period than those on Tamiflu. And also, we did a study in Lanfang study. We did a survey. That area had 8 major universities. So we actually offered a lot of TCM to the students and asked them to write down their to kind of keep a journal on how they're feeling. So then, so it's the main prevention measure was for them to take antiviral drugs. So and there's a very complex situation with the patients because they're all university students. So because we didn't force them to take the drugs. So these are some of the medicines we gave them, and we really, it's a honest system. So we asked them to take the medicines and write down how they're feeling afterwards. So I'm not selling drugs here, but these are some of the drugs that we gave them. So we did the clinical study on TCM treatment on flu patients with mild symptoms. In summer 2009, the state had pretty much controlled the outbreak. So they stopped the nucleic acid testing. So we kind of started, after the state had controlled the flu, H1N1 outflu, a lot of cases were treated as a normal flu. At the time, academician Wong did a report on the comparison of TCM compounds and Tamiflu and their efficacy. So I think, we really found out that the TCM granules can be done so well and then can have such high level of efficacy on mild symptoms. We actually, for mild symptoms, we didn't found a very notable difference in TCM group compared to Western medicine group. I think because when the patients because it's actually same with the retrospective studies, is that TCM medicine actually work better for moderate and severe cases when the patient's body temperature is higher than 38 degrees. So because at the time we did a lot of integrative treatment, so we only kind of, so we had a lot of patients that are on TCM medicine, but just because they're feeling better doesn't mean it's a TCM that's working. So we had to do a lot of guesswork at the time. So I think in the future we want to have better planning for treatment, better design for clinical research. At the time we can collect a lot of serum from patients, so we can do a lot of biological profile research on those patients. I think it's kind of similar in what today scientists are doing for COVID-19. I think we found a lot of interesting characteristics that provided some insight, but at the same time, we need more time to make more discoveries and how to utilize the data we collected. At the time, we also did a lot of network pharmacology research. At the time, network pharmacology was all the rage. So we did some prediction of action of mechanism of Chinese medicine compound. At the time, it was pretty difficult to do. We used a lot of IBM software to do the analyses. And we did some prediction. But over time, whether these predictions actually led to a lot of concrete results, I think only time will tell. And also, we built an ingredient target function analysis platform. I mean, these days, you can easily find a lot of ingredients and targets and their functions because you have a lot of platforms to search. But 11 years ago, it was hard. So back then, we did a lot of research to build this platform. I think that's something that really helped future generations. So we did a lot of selection of effective anti-flu TCM drugs. We set up a lot of TCM systems, screening systems. So we did a lot of screening for patent drugs. So today we have the three formula drug system. So our research back then really contributed to today's COVID-19 fighting work. And at the same time, we did some. Back in 2009, we made a lot of essential oil sachets and gave it out, distributed to military personnel, for example. So we really wanted to do some research into how well the sachet was working. So we want to do some large scale questionnaire. But in the end, because it's so hard and it's such a logistical difficulties, we couldn't do it. And also, we built and improved a comprehensive research technology platform for clinical research integration. I think the good thing for the research integration platform is that it really consolidated a lot of our data. And it's good for the clinical study design and optimization, and it's good for data management. But I think we need some more expert exploration into taking it further. And we also built a comprehensive information platform for infectious diseases. In terms of talent building, because at the time we didn't have very in-depth knowledge of infectious diseases, so we did a lot of training in order to cultivate talent in this area in China. We held a lot of classes, bring in 28 specialists. And at the time, we didn't have a lot of social distancing measures back then, so it was probably easier back then for us to do that than today. And also, we built a TCM infectious disease control system in Western China, where it's very much developed. So these are some of. So eventually, we wrote a report. So this is a report. This is an award-winning report. So I won't go into the theoretical innovation. But one thing I'll mention is that is the guidelines for diagnosis and treatments of H1N1 using TCM from 2009 and 2010. Within 1 year, we launched 4 versions of it and kept upgrading it. Clinical effects and screening, these are something that I talked about before. And in terms of drug development, we did 金花金感、疏风解热. These are some of the drugs that we developed back then. And some of those are still in clinical trial phase, and some are in the market already. I know that some patients are receiving them from hospitals as prevention measures. We also developed antibacterial spray and capsules as well. And the comprehensive information platform for using TCM in epidemic prevention and control really helped us gather and consolidate and manage information. So we had a lot of data mining talent that built this platform. And they all stayed in the same office and spent every day together in order to build this platform. And we also established a model for training TCM clinical emergency personnel. In terms of establishing a clinical scientific research system for TCM's use in treating novel influenzas, we established we've been establishing a center for personnel to get together to conduct research. We also established a monitoring early warning system. And the outbreak response system is also another very good system that we established with a lot of experts. The management structure is something that we can learn from today, because we had a lot of management work that going into the project, a lot of committees and specialists. So we have over 40 clinical centers. So how to structure is very important. So basically, we want to carry out further clinical trials and research and system and drug development. I think these are very true for COVID-19 research. So that was 2009 research. In our information system, we had a lot of data of COVID-19 patients. So this is our very preliminary research on COVID patients. So this is the most notable thing, that is the comparison in tongue coding. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Liu Yanping. Usually keynote speakers are longer, but because we're online, so we have to expedite the process. So we didn't allow Professor Li to really go into his research. So he shared his experience in treating the outbreak of H1N1 almost 10 years ago. So actually, I remember that I was involved in some part of your work back then as well. So thank you, Professor Li, again. The next
speaker, I think you may be very familiar with him. He is a very successful entrepreneur and also a very successful academic researcher. He is Mr. Wu Yiling. He is the founding father of the subjects of the collateral disease in TCM. He is also the experts committee, the deputy director of this committee. He is also the director of the State K Laboratory of the Collateral Disease, TCM, in China. He has a lot of titles and awards, including the first prize for the scientific progress, and also the second prize is for the scientific achievements, stuff like that. It's worth mentioning that Mr. Wu Yiling set up the doctrine of an integrative, comprehensive development of clinical research, drug development, and the clinical practices. It's a great achievement and contribution made by Mr. Wu Yiling. Mr. Wu will share with us today about the collateral disease philosophy and its reference to the microvascular diseases, treatment and diagnosis. Philosophy and its reference to the microvascular disease diagnosis and treatment. It's a great combination of the theory development of the drug, combination of theory development, drug development, and the clinical practices. I'm the founding father of this laboratory. We have 3 directions according to this diagram. We are committed to innovate the theories and the clinical practices. Our focus is a clinical collateral disease that has been studied in China over 2,000 years. It's a kind of the doctrine that treat and diagnosis that very major and very difficult disease and treated by the collateral theories. We can have a review of the history. It is easy to conclude that the history is quite long and fruitful. In my past 40 years, we established the theoretical structures, and we published 3 textbooks, and we have 3 series like Qi law, Mai law. And those textbooks are widely used in the universities of China. Now, I would like to share is the Mai law, what it is, and its reference to the microvascular treatment and prevention. This is the project that's been awarded the first prize by the state. This is the very first establishment of the Mai law doctrine. The key content of it is to set up the standards for the differentiation of the syndrome of collateral disease. At the same time, we mentioned that Sun law, or the capillary, is kind of the focus or the interest points to treat the collateral disease. Whatever from the modern anatomy or the traditional Chinese medicine perspective, this is kind of the key in the treatment, and I think this Mai law is connecting with all the major organs and could be used for the treatment of all the related disease related to those major organs, like the cardiovascular disease, the kidney disease, and the brain diseases. We study the mechanism behind those diseases. For the first time, we set up the system that all the tissue cells of different organs, how does it involve in the mechanism of the disease, and how they make up the network of interaction, and how can we intervene to make our treatment effective. So we are trying to find the common ground for the prevention of those major diseases and the treatment of those diseases for the major organs, like how to protect the myocardial infarction and myocardial cells. So by doing this, through our research, we can effectively preserve the minimum unit of the heart cell through helping the circulation of the heart muscle. We can effectively prevent the palpation. Thin capsule could protect the microvascular systems and enhance the function of the heart. And from the brain perspective, we help the treatment to the shortage of blood for the brain. And through our experiments, it is effectively to save the size of the brain. And some universities made the research on this kind of the treatment to kidney. We can effectively save the sufficient amount of the kidney cells through protecting the moleculars and the signal systems. We control the signal channels of those cells and for effectively enhancing the circulation among this network. So because of this, we found out the major mechanism related to those major diseases like the cardiovascular disease and the kidney disease. And we have 4 aspects that kind of the contribution and solve the breakthrough, solve the difficulty of the cardiovascular disease. And later on, we differentiated the syndromes, and it's been proved that the efficacy has been improved to 20%. And this kind of the drugs has been approved by the experts committee. As the clinical differentiation of the syndrome can effectively treat the population and offer some new kinds of the drugs to enhance the heart function. And because of this drug, we could effectively solve the problem of a proportion and enhance the efficacy of this drug. Because of this, and because of these scientific vikings, this Yangxin capsule has been included in the university textbooks, and we firmly believe that even the efficacy of these drugs, even by the Western points of view, the treatment efficacy has been improved 16%. This result has been published in GCC journal. Simply, it makes a field heart strong again. Even the American experts recognize it is the challenge. But for us, our TCM practitioners brace these challenges and using the Chinese herbs and formulas to treat these long-standing difficulties in the medical aspects. And later on, our new drug development has been included in the guidelines of the treatment of cardiovascular diseases. So we can simply say it's a great breakthrough of using TCM to treat cardiovascular and other major organ diseases. Now I'd like to talk about the second part about today's presentation, how to use the collateral disease theory to help the treatment of the COVID-19. I think the plague-related or the derivative of plague disease has been recorded in Chinese text for a long time, from the Chunqiu period to Han Dynasty to Ming Dynasty and Qing Dynasty. There are plenty of text recording this kind of the disease, and those experts are trying to depict and debug the myths and the underlying pattern of those infectious diseases. From the collateral disease perspectives, we are trying to make this theory like there is Qi Dao and there Qi and the Qi law, and how do they interact with each other and lead to the disease. And we think this disease is mainly caused by the problem of Qi law and Qi Dao. So we need to solve the problem at Qi law and Qi Dao and prevent those diseases at the first place, and even trying to intervene the development of that. And in Qing and Ming and other periods, there are some famous formula like the various of decoctions, and we based the three famous existing formulas and we compound it with two new ingredients and we make up a new formula that can be widely used in the antivirus and anti-inflammatory treatments. So those kind of the treatment is being used in treating H3N3 and other swine flu, and we also notice it can be effective in solving the problem of coughing and shortness of breath, and it can reduce the infection of H1N1 and H3N3 and the inflammatory level of the lung. In 2008, when there was an outbreak of influenza, it's been proved that Lianhua Qingwen capsule was effective in solving those syndromes like fatigue and the high body temperature. The efficacy is even higher than Tamiflu. For those patients that's been treated with Lianhua Qingwen capsule, we found that their close contact has lesser chance of being infected. Lianhua Qingwen capsule has entered the second phase of clinical study in America. I think it's now just the closest, and the third phase will start soon. Lianhua Qingwen capsule plays an important role in the containment of the COVID-19, which has been widely noticed. I think based on the national guidelines, there is a very detailed guidelines on how to use it and how to use this capsule to treat those different patients of various ages and various conditions. The sample size in the guideline is around 8,000. Lianhua Qingwen capsule in vivo and in vitro and in animal trials, it's been proved that it can be used in the anti-COVID-19 and anti-inflammatory treatment. In the animal trial, it's been proved that it can be effectively solve the problem like the inflammatory of the lung with the treatment of the Lianhua Qingwen capsule. And we made some comparison studies, and it proves that we could shorten the period of high body temperature and the syndromes like the body fatigue. The recovery rate and NAT test negative rate, transition rate are all higher. And we noticed that at all the epic centers and the affected area, Lianhua Qingwen has been widely used to treat the patients of COVID-19 and solve the condition like fatigue and coughing and high body temperature. This drug has been registered in many regions and countries of the world, even in Hong Kong and Macau, in Thailand and Brazil and Indonesia. All of those places are offering Lianhua Qingwen capsule and to make and benefit from these drugs. Lianhua capsule for 20 times has been recommended by the national authorities in the treatment of the epidemic like the SARS, COVID-19, MERS, and influenza. Again, this time, Lianhua capsule has been listed in the guideline by the national authorities. And I also noticed that the Professor Tan Zhiyuan is advising the government of Hong Kong to use Lianhua in treatment of the COVID-19 because of the very sound efficacy that played by the Lianhua capsule. Because of that, really appeal the Hong Kong SAR government to include Lianhua capsule in the program of treatment of Hong Kong in order to reduce the severity of this infectious disease and contribute to the awareness of this society. Thank you. Thanks very much. It is I'm very humbled to hear this presentation. Thanks very much to Mr. Wu Yiling. From the abstract, I learned that your presentation is mainly about the collateral disease and the microvascular disease treatment, but even you only have 20 minutes, you touch upon the very trendy issue, the Lianhua capsule, how it works in the antivirus jobs of the treatment. And from the pharmaceutical perspective and from the clinical perspectives. More importantly, a lot of people are paying attention to the treatment of COVID-19, and you touch upon this issue and shared your perspective.